Podcast City Network.
Welcome. This is the Rip Griffin Show podcast, a baseball podcast for baseball fans of all ages. Now, here's your host, Rip Griffin.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Rip Griffin Show. Today, I am joined by Mac from Overtime Heroics. Mac, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
We got a awesome episode in store today. We're one of the things that is so special about today and this week, because we've had a lot of great things that have taken place this week. And not to mention, the big thing that has happened this week is Jackie Robinson Day, which you can see right behind me today. 42. We all wear 42 today. But we'll kind of jump into that on today's episode. We got some Major League Baseball news. A couple pitchers have thrown a couple no-hitters this week, which has been great. And we've got Major League Baseball doing some experiments with within the Atlantic League to kind of do things a little bit different there. But we'll touch into that. But anyways, man, we're going to go ahead and jump into the episode and kind of jump into Jackie Robinson Day, which is something he's been such a iconic figure throughout baseball when he broke into the league back on April 15th, 1947. The color barrier, everything that he did, he was a pioneer for this game. And I'm excited. I'm glad Major League Baseball does this every year to honor Jackie Robinson.
Yeah. He's the only number that is retired across Major League Baseball. Like you said, I mean, he broke the color barrier. He was a great ambassador for the game. Now we also have, he played in the Negro Leagues back in the day, and now those are recognized as Major League Baseball. He was great for the game. And like you said, I'm really glad that every year Major League Baseball honors him. And, he really deserves that honor of being the only player to have his number retired across the league.
Yeah, definitely, because he endured so much throughout his career, especially getting his start in the Negro Leagues. And then I believe he spent some time and actually served in World War II. I don't know if he was actually went overseas to fight, but I think the war was just about to end when he was finally commissioned into the armed services. So he did a lot of great things for this country, and he was well educated. Went to UCLA, actually played football at UCLA. So it's not one that we actually, when we think about Jackie Robinson, we think about baseball, but he was actually a football star as well at UCLA, which is truly phenomenal. He was a all-around gifted athlete. He could do things that we never had seen, especially on the base path. You go back to that 1955 World Series where he stole home, and it was just the speed, the flashiness, the grit. He always gave 100%. And one of the things that makes this so special is there's actually a clip that I like to play, which is from MLB Network. And the actor Chadwick Boseman, which he is no longer with us. He passed away last August due to colon cancer. But he played the iconic figure of Jackie Robinson, and he played it perfectly. And he kind of talks about, just in this little clip, just how he wanted to symbolize Jackie to where, kids can look up to him and, honor Jackie the way he was. He's supposed to be honored. But here's a little clip right here.
The thing that set in once I had a week of, celebrating that I got the role. At first, there's an exhilaration and I had to keep it quiet. But it set in during that time that, children would know Jackie Robinson from my performance. That set in for me that now I'm responsible for being the face of that and portraying, all of the characteristics and the qualities and principles that the man lived under. And I also knew that there were a lot of people who viewed him as a hero that know him very well. and they would be let down if I didn't live up to those expectations.
We're playing ball, ain't we?
I love that part. We're playing ball. That's all we're doing. It was such a great movie. It's such a moving story. Bozeman played that character perfectly. Have you actually been to a game on Jackie Robinson Day?
I have not actually. There was one year I was supposed to go, and the game ended up getting rained out. So I've never actually been to a game on Jackie Robinson Day.
Nah, I haven't either, and that's something that definitely want to put on my bucket list, because just to be able to see the number 42, like you mentioned, it's retired throughout all of baseball, so nobody gets to wear that number, which is it's such a great honor just to wear it one time a year. And we can't just be thankful enough for what Jackie Robinson brought to this game, what he means to this game, the pioneer, the what he endured. Because if you watch the movie 42, there's a lot of things in that movie that kind of shed light as to what he went through during that time, because there was a lot of derogatory name calls, and especially I had one clip, and I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to play it, and I just couldn't because of the names. And even though it symbolizes what he went through, it's just, in today's age, it's just not something that we all we need to try to stray away from that. I'm trying to get too technical here, but yeah, I mean, I truly am glad that baseball does honor Jackie Robinson every year.
Yeah, and one of the players who wore 42 before it retired, in fact, he's the last player to wear number 42, was Mariano Rivera. And he was posting today about how thankful he was to be able to wear that number. I mean, it clearly is must have been such an honor to wear a number that is now so well recognized. Not just in baseball. I feel like across sports, the number 42 it means a lot. And we also, Jackie Robinson also has an award named after him. I mean, not everyone knows that the Rookie of the Year award was actually named after Jackie Robinson. It didn't exist until 1947. So, he also had that to his name. Yeah,
definitely. It's a lot of great things that he did for this game. Like I mentioned, it's you just can't, you get so wrapped up in it, and it's hard not to just be so appreciative of everything that he did. And it's, you have to give credit to, Brooklyn Dodgers owner, Branch Rickey, who made that decision to bring Jackie onto his team when a time that it was not even heard of, not thought of, the segregation, the racial profiling, everything that happened during that era. And Branch Rickey had a slew of players that he could have chosen from that would have fit what he was looking for, but he wanted to do something that was out of the norm. And he made his selection. He chose Jackie Robinson because that's just how Branch Rickey was. He didn't conform to what society was going through at that time. He wanted to do something that was different, but that would make a statement. And bringing Jackie onto the team, going through the spring training down there in Florida, a lot of people don't know that Jackie Robinson actually did not stay with the team during the season. He actually lived with another couple, and even when they traveled, he was in a separate hotel. That's just how it was at that time. And it's looking back, you think it's very disconcerting, but that, unfortunately, that's what he went through.
Yeah, I remember, and they do show that in 42. I mean, the Dodgers were literally not. They were like I think it was in spring training where they were pulling up to a hotel, and they were like just straight up. They said, like, the Dodgers, you can't stay here because you have Robinson on your team. I mean, it was incredibly messed up, and I think we've advanced past that age in the country, but we can't forget about what he had to go through. I mean, and what a lot of black ball players back then had to go through. I mean, it was horrible, and he powered through, and he was able to. He lasted for a while in the league, and he left he had a lasting impact on baseball and honestly on all of sports.
Oh, absolutely. I think he was the first, and then there was many that were right behind him that Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Barry Bonds and these iconic figures and that played this great game, and that's all thanks and because of Jackie Robinson. So definitely want to honor him on this special day on April 15th that he broke the barrier and changed the outlook and the grand scheme of baseball for the greater good of the game. So thank you to Jackie Robinson. It's always great, like I mentioned, to talk about him every year on this day. And of course, it's not just on this day. We talk about him throughout the season as well. So, but definitely want to open the show and, commemorate Jackie Robinson for everything that he did for this baseball game. So, but to kind of change gears now, I don't want to sound like I'm straying away from it, but there has been a couple no-hitters that were thrown on the first week and a half of baseball, which is exciting. And one of them actually came out of San Diego for the first time in franchise history, and Joe Musgrove, who was facing the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers seem to be struggling against the San Diego Padres. You give up Slam Diego last season. You throw a 3-0 fastball right down the middle to Fernando Tatis, and he hits it over the wall for a grand slam. So it seems like the Rangers just don't, match up well with the Padres, which is, it's the Rangers. So, but Joe Musgrove, just last week against the Rangers on the 9th, he went 9 strong innings, struck out 10 in his first no-hitter of his career and first no-hitter in San Diego's Padres franchise history, which is a phenomenal feat within itself.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You mentioned, you say the Rangers don't match up well against the Padres. I don't think the Rangers match up well against really anyone, if I'm being honest. The Rangers, are not built to compete this year. They're not built to compete next year, really, either. But this was a masterful performance all around. Joe Musgrove, he struck out 10. He only allowed 1 base runner, which was a hit by pitch to Joey Gallo. He was locked in all day. His fastball was working. His slider was working. All of his pitches were working. His defense was good behind him. He really only had a few hard hit balls, and one of them was in the 9th inning. David Dahl hit a line drive right at Jake Cronenworth. I mean, they were on a roll. And you did mention it. The Rangers are the same team that served up the Slam Diego slams. I mean, the Padres last year against the Rangers hit grand slams in 4 consecutive games. This year, they're throwing their first ever no-hitter. The Padres are a very exciting team, and Joe Musgrove was a big acquisition this offseason. The Padres needed more pitching. They got more pitching, and now Musgrove already, say his first week pitching regular season games for the Padres, he tosses a no-hitter. That was honestly amazing to see. The Padres have had a few other times where their pitchers had taken no-hitters into the 9th inning. The most recently, I believe, was Chris Young, who is now the Texas Rangers GM. They mentioned it on the telecast and on MLB Network that Chris Young, the former Padre, is the Rangers GM. And in 2006, he had taken a no-hitter into the 9th inning for the Padres. So he got to witness history, albeit he was on the losing side this time. But yeah, it was a phenomenal performance. Really happy for him. Really happy for the Padres. I mean, as a Mets fan, I remember when the Mets went 51 years without a no-hitter. And now the Padres, they had the longest wait, but they finally have gotten it done. And Musgrove's from El Cajon, California. So local kid made history. I mean, he was a Jake Peavy fan growing up. So there's that too.
It's just truly phenomenal for a guy that is playing for his hometown team to go and, a lot of Astros fans will remember Joe Musgrove back in the World Series. He's his performance during that as well. So he's always been a great and fantastic pitcher. Didn't really pan out too well in Pittsburgh, but to come over to San Diego, basically to come home and to throw a no-hitter for the first time in the franchise's history is truly phenomenal within itself. I think no-hitters are rare in this day and age. It's very rare that we may have one, maybe two in a season, but to have two essentially less than a week within each other is truly remarkable as well. And just this week, yesterday actually on the 14th was Carlos Rodon against the Cleveland Indians, goes 9 strong innings, struck out 7 on the way to his first no-hitter for the White Sox. So it's truly phenomenal. I mean, we can look back at the Joe Musgrove no-hitter, and the guys from the Rangers were saying that he was locked in and they couldn't hit him. That was from early on, and a kind of similar situation with Carlos Rodon as well. He gets his this year. Lucas Giolito had his last year. So the pitching is, especially with the White Sox, is going to be great to watch.
Yeah, and Rodon's, I am so happy for Carlos Rodon. If I'm being honest, I didn't know if he was going to even be I didn't even know if he was going to really pitch this year. This is a guy who underwent Tommy John surgery in 2019, came back last year. I mean, he also had shoulder problems in the past, comes back last year, and he struggled so mightily that the White Sox non-tendered him. And the whole speculation was that he was not going to be on the White Sox this year. I mean, this was a guy who, he was the 3rd overall pick out of NC State in 2014. I mean, he just wasn't getting the job done. And then last night, I mean, I didn't even know Carlos Rodon could throw in the high 90s, but he was pumping 97, 98, even 99 in the 9th inning. And he was just dealing, in the 9th inning, he had a couple of close calls. Remember, he had a perfect game going through 8. And then Josh Naylor hit a slow ground ball that almost broke up the no-hitter, but luckily Jose Abreu was able to get to the bag in time. And then the next batter, Roberto Perez, gets hit on the foot by a slider. And, you got to wonder, man, like, they're down 8-0. Could he have at least just gotten out of the way of that? And, I mean, he couldn't, but, I will say this one thing to Perez's defense, that it was a slider. It's not like Rodon threw a fastball and he just straight up didn't get out of the way. I mean, it was a slider. It was going to be tough to get out of the way, but he still was able to regroup. The strike zone did get a little larger that 9th inning, but regardless, fantastic performance. And for a guy who some people assumed like his career may be basically over, to see him throw a no-hitter, that was just simply amazing.
Yeah, truly amazing, especially for a guy that was non-tendered. And to come back, because a lot of guys, once they're non-tendered, you kind of expect them to go elsewhere and pick up on another team. And he comes in. I think that was his first start or his second start?
I believe that was his second start.
Wow, so his second start, and to be stretched out to 9 innings that quick in his second start of the season, same with Musgrove as well. But truly phenomenal to actually this early in the season for us to be talking about players that have had no-hitters is truly something to definitely be appreciative of. And you mentioned the strike zone. I mean, we've had a lot of umpires so far this season that seem to be stretching their strike zones.
Just a little bit. Yeah. I will say also, like you mentioned, like we have 2 no-hitters already, we've reached a day and age in baseball where a lot of managers, they'll take their pitchers out just because of pitch count. And I was a little worried that was going to happen to both Musgrove and Rodon, but no, their managers, they stuck with them. And I'm really glad they did. I mean, I remember in 2012 when Johan Santana threw his no-hitter. He threw 134 pitches, if I'm not mistaken. And
Wow.
I remember in 2010, Edwin Jackson threw 149 in his. I mean, some people have thrown so many pitches. These guys were both over 100, but they weren't like completely pushing it to the point where I'd be worried about their future health. And they honestly looked like they were doing just fine in the ninth inning. I mean, Rodon was throwing his hardest pitches of the night in the ninth. So, I mean, I hope these are not the last ones we see this year. I mean, they threw we have 2 in the first week and a half of the season. I believe we had 2 or 3 last year. I know we had Lucas Giolito and Alec Mills.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting also. Mills in his only had 5 swings and misses. And I believe Musgrove had like over 20 his, and Rodon was high up too. So, you don't always have to pitch the cleanest games to throw no-hitters, but I think both these guys, they weren't really walking batters. In fact, they both only allowed 1 base runner. So these are truly some of the best performances that we've seen in a while, and they will now never be forgotten.
Oh no, they've cemented themselves into the echelon of pitchers that have thrown no hitters. It's I mean the list is long, but I mean there's quite a few of great pitchers. You look at Nolan Ryan and Justin Verlander, other guys, Sandy Koufax, guys like that have thrown no hitters throughout their career. Hall of Famers, potential Hall of Famers, if you want to look at it that way or not, but to be just included in that group of pitchers is something truly remarkable. And one of the things I had found some stats that through the no hitters, I'm trying to pull up something here, but let's see where did it go here. I was not prepared. I just thought of this, and there was. Let's see where did it go. Let me just. I'm not going to bother. I'll look for it later. But anyways, I mean, these guys had kind of. It was just stats based on no hitters with 1 runner on or whatever, and how they were actually able to accomplish it. But I'll digress from that from right now. But yeah, truly phenomenal for these guys. Congratulations to them. Like you mentioned, something definitely worth remembering for sure. But kind of one of the other things that kind of changed gears a little bit, kind of just rolling through tonight's show. Major League Baseball came out before the season and was going to experiment with new rule changes throughout the minor leagues. Now, the Independent League, the Atlantic League, is going to partner with Major League Baseball to test out some new rules that might make its way into Major League Baseball in the future. And there's 2 of them that I kind of want to get your thoughts on. One is called the DH rule, which is known as the double hook rule. And then, of course, the second one is they're actually moving the pitcher's mound back a foot from 60 feet 6 inches to 61 feet 6 inches. So I'm going to get your thought on this double hook rule, because it sounds pretty interesting, and it might, it might work. It kind of just depends on how everything else plays out with the collective bargaining agreement. But the double hook rule is going to be a rule that's now this is from Major League Baseball. It's going to be a rule that's comprised of sorts. It utilizes the DH spot that has been in effect in the American League since 1973. But once a team's starting pitcher is replaced, the pitcher spot takes over the DH spot in the batting order. So from that point on, the team will be required to either use a pinch hitter in that spot or let the relief pitcher bat. So what are your thoughts on the double hook rule?
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea, actually. That means, your starter goes, say 7 innings or something, which I know isn't as common these days, but still you get your DH, and then, if your guy, you take your guy out, then fine, you can lose your DH spot. I mean, I doubt if you're bringing in a reliever, they're really going to hit much. So I think it's fair to say, you'll just get some pinch hitters up. I think this is honestly a fine compromise. This is obviously DH is so heavily talked about these days. You know, the DH is only in the AL, but it was universal last year, which I mean, I am personally for the universal DH. I know not everybody is, but in my opinion, I've always kind of thought like the DH should either be all or nothing. Like everyone should have the DH or nobody should have the DH, in my opinion. I think it's kind of ridiculous that just the American League uses the DH. So, and I know for a while pitchers used to hit, and I know my dad has voiced in the past that he wasn't a huge fan of the designated hitter when it got introduced. But I think more and more we're seeing that baseball needs the DH. It's just a matter of to what extent can it be implemented. So I think that for now this is a fine compromise, but I think eventually you have to also think about pitchers' health and how they can get injured running the bases or swinging a bat. I mean, we've already seen Zach Gallen get injured swinging a bat this year in spring training. So I think, for now this is fine, but if they do implement it, I don't expect it to last long because I think sooner or later the DH is going to be universal.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've been an advocate for the universal DH since the talks of this actually happening. I think the DH is great because you get your best 9 hitters coming up to the plate every game. Now, no disrespect to the pitchers, especially guys like Madison Bumgarner, Zach Greinke, those guys that love to hit and have hit for power and have hit home runs. Shohei Ohtani is another one. That game that just last week with the Angels where Ohtani actually hit and he pitched in the same game. Now, the Angels gave up their designated hitter for that game. And I kind of was curious because the National League could probably, even though the designated hitter is not implemented into the National League, you would think that they could just, take the pitcher out and put another hitter in. I don't understand the technical part of that. I know the leagues are supposed to be different, but you almost could think the National League could probably do something like that. I know I'm kind of going out of left field here. It's kind of but it's confusing because the American League can do it, but the National League cannot. And it's a simple rule because one has the DH, one doesn't. But I think the universal DH is something that's going to be basically implemented in the next couple seasons with the new collective bargaining agreement. I like this rule. I think it's going to give a new aspect, especially when it comes to strategizing. But, we'll see how it plays out. That's what the Atlantic League is for. So I like it. I think we're both in agreement that the designated hitter needs to be universal throughout the league. So that was a good one there. And then one of the things that Major League Baseball is actually considering is moving the pitching mound back from 60 feet 6 inches to 61 feet 6 inches. So this is what Major League Baseball says, that moving the pitching rubber back a foot will provide batters with more time to react to pitches, potentially improving contact rates, thereby injecting more action into the game. It will be found that the reaction time on a 93.3 mile an hour fastball, which is an average four-seam fastball velocity thrown in 2020, thrown from 61 feet 6 inches is equivalent to a 91.6 mile an hour fastball, which is an average fastball velo in 2011, thrown at 60 feet 6 inches. So what do you think? Moving the mound back, is that going to actually help these batters, or is it just going to be, in my opinion, about the same?
Honestly, I don't see a point to this. It could help the batters a little bit, but how much is a foot really going to do? I'm not a fan of this idea. I think, first of all, 93.8 miles per hour fastball velocity is going to keep going up, but at the same time, like, we're also in the day and age where a lot of hitters are trained just to hit long balls. They're tapping into this whole launch angle thing. A lot of people are uppercutting their swings when, strikeouts are going up, home runs are going up, walks are going up. I think that if you move the mound back, honestly, walks might continue to go up. Strikeouts might go down. Home runs might continue to go up, honestly. I really don't think this needs to happen. I think if you keep it at 60 foot 6 inches, that'll be perfectly fine. So, I mean, yes, I mean, I think if anything, I would have thought that they'd be doing something to combat all the home runs. And honestly, I think this would make home runs go up in some ways. So I'm not really quite sure what they're trying to do here. I think that just keep it at 60 foot 6 inches. It's perfectly fine. They don't need to move the mound back. They don't need to move the mound forward. They don't need to lower the mound. I think that where we're at right now, pitchers aren't super, the velocity's going up, but so are home runs. So, I mean, I think, there's already a high scoring environment. Why do something that could make the scoring environment go further up? So that's my 2 cents on the whole situation. I think just keep it as is.
No, exactly, 100%. And Cooter Green's watching the show tonight, and he says that you're right. Messing with the mechanics of the pitcher is something that these guys are geared for 60 feet 6 inches. That's where they can try to use the mechanics that they have to increase their velocity. And when you actually move it back, that kind of just throws off their whole. They're having to use extra force, extra momentum to increase their velocity, because now their distance has been lengthened to a certain point where injuries might be something that might happen. The thing with getting more action into the game, I get that. We're seeing a lot of strikeouts. We're seeing guys throwing no hitters, but I mean, we're still seeing home runs. I mean, they said that they were going to doctor the baseball and use humidifiers and humidors and things to kind of deaden the weight of the ball, but yet the ball is still traveling at a astronomically long rate, basically. So I don't get that whole aspect of it. I mean, get the ball back in play, but I mean, don't toy with the mechanics of a pitcher, because that's where he's going to base everything off of. Colton wrote in here. They do need to do something to lower the home runs, but increase traction. Moving the mound just may seem to be it. So, Colton, he likes the idea, which is great. I mean, some people will like it, some people will not, and these pitchers are the ones that are probably going to say no, and I don't think it's going to work, to be honest. So,
yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, also they're going to be adjusting the strike zone too, which is an interesting concept. I mean, I don't know if it's really worth it, but I know that might honestly help the pitchers more. And I think the strike zone, we've seen all sorts of variations on the strike zone. We were just talking about it with the Rodon no hitter. I mean, the inside corner, or the corners have gotten. It seems like they've gotten wider every year, but the north south plane, the letters and the knees, they've sort of shrunk, I guess.
Yeah.
I think if we alter the strike zone, maybe there'll be less dispute. I mean, honestly, it's part of the game, umpires blowing calls. That's why I don't know if robot umps would be a good idea. And I know that they have experimented with that in the independent league, in a few independent leagues. But I think that adjusting the strike zone, honestly, I'm going to go the same idea as moving the mound back. I think if you keep it the same, it's fine. Every umpire has a different strike zone.
Oh, absolutely. And as long as we don't have an Angel Hernandez behind the plate, we might have a good game called. But I get it. These guys, they definitely expand the zone at different times. I had a thought that maybe they are trying to expand the zone, that maybe to kind of increase the game if it's taking too long. That's just a thought that I had. I mean, it
seems that way sometimes, that especially towards the end of the game, I feel like the umps sometimes are just like, all right, let's go home. Let's just. I know when I played baseball, albeit this was back in like Little League, the umps would always try to speed up the games by expanding the strike zone. So maybe that's happening in Major League Baseball too, but I hope that's not the case. But maybe changing up the strike zone would, I guess, speed the game up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It's just those things that you notice throughout the game that, especially towards the latter part, okay, they're just trying to wrap this up. And if that's the case, I mean, come on, stick to stick to your strike zone. This is baseball. It's gonna end when it ends, and that's what we need to still focus on. So, but those are just some of the things that Major League Baseball is working on right now. You brought in the robo ump deal. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, but since it's being implemented, especially in the Atlantic League and the low A Southeast leagues in the minor leagues, so a lot of things that we might see. One of the things is, the extra inning rule with the runner on second, the 7-inning doubleheaders. What are your thoughts on the extra inning man on second rule?
I think it's terrible. I mean, I'll be straight up with you right there. I think the runner on second base rule is ridiculous. It'd be one thing if they did it, say, all right, we get to the 12th inning and then you start the rule. But this is not real baseball. If you get to the 10th inning, that's you should still be able to play, whatever, get your guys on base, get the run in, not start with a runner in scoring position already, and then do it. Just, if boom, you hit a ground ball and a sac fly and that's your run, and you didn't get a hit. You didn't even get a guy on base. I mean, it'd be one thing if the runner started on first maybe, but you're already putting a guy in scoring position, which they want to speed up the game, but honestly, that'll just prolong the game, I think, because then both sides, it's easier for them to score and the game will just go on forever.
No, absolutely. Cooter said, stop. I agree. Stop changing the game. Yeah, it was pure. And if it takes forever, it takes forever. That's baseball. That's how we grew up watching it. That's how it still needs to be played. So a lot of things that Major League's doing, I get they want to try to attract more and bring more fans into the game, but this is not the way to do it. Baseball is it's been like this since the 1800s, since it started. So, but it'll be interesting to see how everything kind of pans out, especially with the collective bargaining agreement that's going to end after the end of the 2021 season. So, we'll kind of keep an eye on that and kind of see what new rules Major League Baseball is going to destroy the game with. So, but one of the things I wanted to ask you, I didn't get a chance to see it, but the shift has always been a topic that should it stay, should it go? But your New York Mets seem to figure out a way to beat the shift. I think it was through Luis Rojas. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he saw the game. Maybe I'm just making something up. But he kind of, used some strategy to it. Do you remember that game?
I don't remember exactly, but I know that there are a number of strategies to beat the shift. And I know that there's a lot of talk about banning the shift. I think banning the shift is stupid, if I'm being honest. Again, I mean, they're gonna play you to pull, but if you're gonna, if you're gonna complain about the shift, I think part of it is learning how to hit the opposite field. I mean, I've seen players also figure out how to beat it by bunting. I remember one of my favorite players growing up was Carlos Delgado, and I would go to games where Delgado, they would shift on him and he would just bunt down the third base line. He's not a fast runner, but he would get on base because there was nobody on the left side of the infield. I think you have to learn how their strategies, to get around it. I mean, there's also teams that play with 4 guys in the outfield. And I think, if you're going to, if you're going to get hurt by it, you're just going to have to learn how to beat it. Honestly, that's just baseball. So I think the shift should stay. I mean, I've seen the Mets get burned by it. I've seen, not just the Mets. I mean, I've seen teams get burned by it, and I've also seen teams exploit it. So I think the shift is good for strategy. And I think, it makes teams better both defensively and offensively.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think it brings a different dynamic to the game, and you've got to be able to beat it somehow so you can get on base. And hey, sometimes small ball does work. So, but yeah, a lot of good things that are in the works for Major League Baseball. Jackie Robinson Day, no hitters. Baseball still, it's still April. A lot of teams are breaking through, and I think the Dodgers are up to 10 wins now or 9 wins. They're getting close. Some teams are
10-2.
So yeah, I mean, hey, that's a pretty awesome start to the season. We're seeing some teams kind of start off hot and get kind of cold. So it's April. A lot of things that once August, September comes around, if your team is not doing too well, or don't be nervous right now. So, but one last thing I want to end this show on is we got our first. The show got the first voicemail, and it's actually for you. So,
awesome.
Andrew called in, and I'm gonna go ahead and play it right now.
Hey, Rip. My name is Andrew. I had a couple questions for Matthias. Kind of Met-centric, I guess I would say. First off, when the Texas Rangers are in town, I just want to know if Matthias thinks that they, go out and dine with the New York Rangers, the hockey team. I don't know, just the Rangers name, New York Rangers, Texas Rangers. I don't know, maybe there's some sort of connection there. Second off, what do we think about the New York Mets this year? Kind of a questionable start. Brandon Nimmo's been on fire, but just want Matthias' opinion on how they've been, what he thinks they will be, and how they're going to finish up and continue the season. Thanks. See ya.
Okay, so the first question is in regards to the Texas Rangers and the New York Rangers hockey team. Do you see those guys dining together?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. They hold a giant, they hold a giant picnic. It's the Rangers meetup. That they totally, they do that. I think that the Texas Rangers and New York Rangers, they. I'm sure the New York Rangers, when they're in Texas, they meet up with the Texas Rangers too, and they meet up with the Texas Rangers police officers. I think that's what happens. I hope that answers the question, Andrew.
And then, what are your thoughts on the Mets? Like you mentioned, Brandon Nimmo's doing pretty good, but what's your outlook for the Mets this season?
I'm glad you mentioned Brandon Nimmo. He's off to a torrid start this year. I believe his on-base percentage is up above 600 this year. I've always been a Brandon Nimmo believer. A lot of people, especially of the older generations, really, for some reason, they hold this vendetta against Brandon Nimmo because of his batting average. Batting average is a stat that's really going out of fashion. I think Brandon Nimmo is part of it. I mean, they'll be like, I saw someone when the Mets signed Kevin Pillar this offseason. I saw someone say, Kevin Pillar, they signed him because he's going to start ahead of Nimmo because he has a higher batting average than Brandon Nimmo. And that was one of the worst takes I've ever seen on the internet. Kevin Pillar, who hit leadoff on opening day, is not an everyday center fielder, and he's not better than Brandon Nimmo. As for the rest of the Mets, they're off to an interesting start. The starting pitching, David Peterson had a rough first start. Other than that, the starting pitching has been fantastic. Their team ERA of 2.81. Peterson was phenomenal last night, going 6 innings, striking out 10, only allowing 3 hits and 1 run, which was a solo home run to Met killer Gene Segura, who hit 457 against the Mets last year. The rest of the team, the bullpen will always be scary. It's inevitable. Every year, I bet most fans will say this about their favorite team's bullpen, is that when the bullpen comes in, they get nervous. But, I mean, for the Mets, it's no different. I mean, Edwin Diaz is fantastic. He had that iffy 2019. He was really good last year, though. He has great stuff. Gets a lot of strikeouts. Sometimes he can get a little wild, but I'm a huge fan of Edwin Diaz. Trevor May, I think, was a great acquisition. He struggled. Him and Aaron Loup both struggled on opening day, but other than that, they've been fine. They both May is a hard thrower. He gets a lot of strikeouts, loop, a sort of a side-arming lefty who's a sinker baller. He gets ground balls. Yesterday, in the first inning he came in with 2 men on, 1 out. He threw 2 pitches, got ground ball, double play. He's a good pickup, I think. Jeurys Familia really worries me. He tends to lose the strike zone completely. Del Matanzas, who just went on the IL, he also really worries me because his velocity has gone really far down ever since he signed. So I'm concerned there. But they will be getting Seth Lugo back at some point. So, the bullpen will be fine, I think, eventually. And as for the lineup, obviously we mentioned Nimmo. Francisco Lindor seems like he's starting to round into form. He got 2 hits, and a walk yesterday. He got his first extra base hit the other day. We'll start seeing more of the vintage Francisco Lindor, I think. My biggest concern in that lineup, I know it's early in the season, but Michael Conforto has looked terrible so far this season. He just looks like he's pressing. It is a contract year for him, and there's been extension talks, but I really hope Conforto can get going. I think he can. I think he can get going. That's another guy where people harp on him. They call him not clutch for some reason, even though he has a career OPS of over 900 with runners in scoring position. I think that once they can get everyone going, James McCann hit his first homer yesterday. I think once they can get that lineup going, get Alonso going, Dom Smith is starting to hit, get McNeil going. I think once they can get that lineup going, the Mets are going to be a force. And we've seen the Braves struggle, we've seen the Nationals struggle, the Marlins. They're still the Marlins. They're not that good. And that's just me being honest. I don't think the Marlins are a very good team. I think they got a little lucky last year. And the Phillies, they started out 4-0. They're 5-1, but now they've lost 5 of their last 6. I don't think the Phillies are really that good. And Alec Boehm didn't touch home that one game. So their one win in their last 6 games was because an umpire blew a call. So I think that the Mets, the NL East is for the taking, and I really think that the NL East is theirs to lose.
No, exactly. The East is going to be one of those divisions that's it could go. I think we talked about this a few episodes ago. It could be a 4, maybe 5 team race. It just kind of depends how everything kind of pans out. So let me ask you, just to kind of wrap up, and thanks to Andrew for the voicemail. So in that Phillies Braves game, was he safe or was he out?
He didn't touch home, therefore he's out. That's what I'm gonna say. I know we all have the whole Buster Posey rule, where you're not allowed to block home plate. You have to give the guy a clear path. But
right.
Boehm slid, and Darno, he straight up slid into Darno and didn't touch home, and they reviewed it and still called him safe, which is absolutely ridiculous. I remember last year the Mets lost a game against the Braves, actually, where I think it was Ender Inciarte slid into home and he never touched home. They also called him safe there. I don't know. It makes me question the whole instant replay process. Why have instant replay if even after instant replay you get it wrong? What goes on in New York during that?
I wish I knew. And I kind of put this out there. If Major League Baseball is looking for an independent replay official, I would gladly take that position. I think all of baseball fans would love to take that position, because clearly he missed the plate. It was pretty obvious, but it's a rough week for MLB umpires, because this just comes shortly after the Conforto incident. Right. With the hit by pitch in the strike zone. They have to get it together. It's getting ridiculous, honestly. It seems like they get worse every year. I agree 100%, and I wish there was a way that we could fix it to where the consistency is accurate. And if you have instant replay, use it to its full potential, not just whether or not a runner was tagged safe or out on a stolen base, or a home run. If it hits the yellow line, wherever, that, but use it for its full advantage. I mean, get different camera angles. I mean, they're all about the angles and which view is the best. Get a camera that's over home plate. I mean, that's all it needs, is put one directly over home plate so where you can see it. So, but man, that's all I've got for this episode. I appreciate you coming on, talking some baseball with me. Definitely talk about Jackie Robinson and and everything that he did for the league. Congratulations to Joe Musgrove and Carlos Rodon for their no-hitters. And we'll see what happens in the Atlantic League. And hopefully Major League Baseball will try not to mess it up too bad. So, but I appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Rip, by the way. You can find me on Twitter at Matthias_A_K.
Absolutely. So be sure to check out that. And, thanks again to Andrew for calling in and leaving a voicemail. If you have a question that you would like answered, be sure to give the show a call. That number is 210-263-3253. And the show is a part of the Podcast City Network. So be sure to check out all the amazing shows on the network. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rip Griffin Show. Make sure to subscribe to the show on all the major podcast platforms. Follow Rip on Twitter at RipGriffin2.